Hello, everyone, and welcome to another talk on the Field Engineer channel. Thank you to our viewers and listeners for being part of this community. I encourage you to make your comments on this topic today that we're going to discuss around the table together. I have with me my partner in crime, Charlie Apps. Hello, Charlie.
Hey.
Today we have with us Kevin. Thank you for joining us today. Kevin, we're happy to have you. And back with us is Maurizio de Poli. Hello, Maurizio. And Bruce Breeden. Hello, Bruce.
Hi, everyone.
So the topic we chose for today is basically about employee engagement and employee alignment. All of us around the table here are managers at different levels of the organizations. We started, at the bottom as field engineers, and we went up the scale, and we have our experiences that we would like to share with you. So maybe we can start with you, Kevin, around that topic of employee engagement and alignment. What do you have in mind to share with us today?
So one of the things that's always been important to me is as I've grown through my career, and like you say, I started as a service engineer, and now I run a global installation business. But one of the things that's always stuck with me as I've gone through my career is kind of what is my purpose and what value do I bring to the organization, and that's kind of engagement, right? Employee engagement, and how do you measure that, and how do you maintain it going forward? So it's something I've always focused pretty strongly on. Now, as part of Siemens Healthineers, this is something we measure pretty closely. Every month we do an employee survey, and we kind of measure and track how people are feeling about their own employee engagement. So I'll be interested to figure out or to find out from you guys, what you do in your areas, and what you find valuable around engagement, what benefits it brings. Because for me, if you have purpose and what you do has value at work every day, then you're excited to go, and you always give your best every day at work. So I think it's critical to try and to firstly gauge employee engagement, and certainly try and improve it over time. So for me, it's one of our more valuable metrics over a lot of other things, is because the old famous saying, if you've got a happy employee, the business is going to do well. Look after your employees, and the business will look after itself. So I'm a big fan of that, and to me, engagement is one of the key factors. So I'd be interested to hear anybody else's take on that.
Anybody would like to jump in?
Yeah, sure. I will. Yeah, good thoughts, Kevin. I agree. I think we all recognize, one, doing the job ourselves in the day, but two, just being close to the business. How hard it is each and every day. All the problems that they encounter, if nothing else, is just the traffic that they have today to get from one place to another, perhaps. And I think in what triggered what you said to me was, really engaging them, because in today's world, it's so fast, and we're all so virtual nowadays. Everything's electronic. It's even harder today than it was when we were in the field, to be engaged as a team, right? Because you may not even see someone physically for some time, and you're already on an island, by the nature of what we do in field service. So I think as leaders, we have to work even extra hard to try to pull people together. And I mean that both as teams as well as individuals. Really get to know someone, and what are their drivers. I just left a conference from last week here in the States, and we were talking about drive. People that want to do their best, as Kevin was saying, each and every day, and what makes up one's drive, to bring it to the table, to do that. And it's their skill set, obviously, but it's also their passion. And I think it's incumbent on us is to find out what our team's passions are. I mean that certainly in the plural form, because they're different for everyone, right? It could be because they have a family situation. It could be because they want to take this great vacation. It may be because they have purpose, to take care of customers, or to learn another product line, or whatever it may be. but I think it's part of our quest each and every day is to look for that passion. Now, I don't mean that that's static either, because an individual's passion will change as their life changes and their circumstances change. But to create that drive, we have to ultimately get to that person's passion. And to me, that's the greatest form of engagement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to jump here at this point. One of the things at interview when I'm recruiting for a new engineer that I will do is I will ask a candidate, think back in the last 6 months, a year, to a time that you've gone to work and you've had a really good day at work. Now tell me about that day. And that for me gets to the core of, what is it that drives them? And typically for a field engineer, it's, they've faced a problem at a customer site and they've delivered and they've overcome and that's what gives them that buzz. So I think that's important to understand. You're absolutely right, Bruce. What makes people tick, and understanding are people in the right job. We don't always get to select our teams. Sometimes we'll inherit people. And ensuring that we understand what is engagement for them. I'm sure we'll come on to look at what does disengagement look like, and how do you turn around an employee who's not engaged. But I think the other luxury I've had in previous roles is a business where they've employed a third party independently to do 6-month pulse surveys to get a good understanding and allow people to really truly speak their mind. It's all very well us going to our employees, how are we doing? But if we're in a position of power over them, we can't guarantee they're going to give us the whole truth and the whole story. And I think employing that third party and that independent party, so people can, you're not always going to get pure honesty and pure openness. But I think it's a step closer to really understanding what the employees are actually feeling and what they say. So I think those are my views on the initial point of employee engagement. Mm-hmm. I think clearly it's all very important to us. We understand that it's important. I think capturing it, understanding it, and doing something about it is another thing that we can move on to.
I heard two important aspects here from Charlie, Kevin, and Bruce, and one of them is the hiring. And how you gauge the employee as to what they bring and what their expectations are from the job also. And the other point is about the employee engagement survey. And I think companies nowadays do it every 2 years or so. So it's a whole timeline between the hiring of the person through the job and into the employee engagement survey, and how the manager is following the employees through that timeline. Because if we have the opportunity to stay close to our employees, despite all our busyness and our travel and our multiple plates that we're trying to spin every day, and we try to stay close to our employees, if we have our hand on the pulse, we can gauge how motivated they are and how engaged they are. And maybe also knowing them personally helps us read them. Are they engaged today? Have they been disengaged for a while? Have they lost their mojos? What's happening with a specific employee that we feel today he's disengaged? What's happening? And this is also Charlie pointed out to that. Sometimes employees don't open up to the manager, and the surveys are anonymous. So we don't know who wrote what, and this is good because we want to look at the group of input and not necessarily maybe a specific person. But the challenge of the manager is to build that relationship so the employees feel comfortable approaching the manager with anything that is not jiving well with them potentially. And maybe with the survey that we do, we can maybe notice something that needs our attention to bring back the engagement of the employee and the alignment of the employee with the objectives of the department and the priorities of the company. So this is a responsibility also of the manager to be able to pick up on that and see what's going on with the team and maybe try to correct it as quickly as possible by dialoguing with the team members.
I have one thing that I wanted to say related to what Charlie said. What was the best day, right? As a field service engineer. So if I think to myself in the past, and also hearing from other ex-colleagues, I think it's a mix. We are in tech, so I guess first point is that we love products, right? So that we love to work for a company where we believe in the product that the company is selling and the mission that the company has. So these two are, like, for me, the basic. And then, of course, knowing a product and loving that product means being able, as field service engineer, to understand the product and being able to troubleshoot. Because I guess installation, and I mean also installation can give some some issues sometimes and nowadays. But being able to have all the tools available to solve the issues, to solve the installation, to be good in front of the customer, to give a very good presentation of myself in front of the customer, and making sure that it's as smooth as possible, either an installation, troubleshooting, maintenance, and so on, which means also having the right documentation, the right training, the right onboarding, the right people, support people that I can talk to directly, can escalate. We said this last time. I think it's very important as a field service engineer to have all this available and this on a permanent basis. So to be able to learn and know this product as best as I can. And that's the best day, right? And also processes. So when you have like smooth processes, you don't have to deal with a lot of admin, or the admin, it's easy. No? That you can, at the end of the day, maybe a couple of emails, couple of clicks, and then you're done with your admin, with your expensive, with your signatures. And so all this makes a very good day, I guess, for a field service engineer to be able to go to dinner, have a good night's sleep, and the day after be back again on site.
Yeah, how many of us know field engineers who really love to do lots of paperwork? I think the onus is on us to reduce as much of that administrative burden as we can to focus on the core good stuff. Of course, in regulated industries, in any industry, that paperwork, there is a certain element, and there's always a balance of the more data you get, maybe the better your decisions, but if that's manual data entry, then at what cost is that data coming? So I think Maurizio, you tap into some really important ideas of maximizing the enjoyment and the fun of the work that we do, and minimizing and the friction and the less fun stuff.
Mm-hmm. Gavin, the topic went around the table. From what you've heard, what you would like to add and comment?
Yeah, and I think something you said about expectations from employees as well hit with me. But I think one of the big challenges these days as well is we have so many different generations of workforce as well, and it's becoming quite tricky to manage everyone. Everyone has a different expectation when they come to work now. Everyone's engagement levels are different because you got Generation X, which is probably the majority of the workforce these days, who are they just battle through everything, and they don't like to complain. They just head down and work in. And then now we have millennials and Gen Z as well, who are very much more aware of what's going on around them and want very specific value and purpose in what they do. And you have to, particularly when you're hiring stuff now, and then as they get into employment, you need to be aware of how they think differently, which isn't a bad thing at all. I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but they do think differently to some of us older people, older generations. And you need to be aware of that. If you want to be a good manager and a good leader, you need to be aware of these generational differences, and that what is maybe meaningful to you is not so meaningful to them. And having to create a workplace that's available for everybody to work in regardless of your generation is very tricky to do these days. But it's something you have to pay very close attention to make sure that everyone who's coming to work enjoys it as much as possible and can go home feeling like they've got value out of that day.
Right, and that's a very important point. It's a fact. In your team, you can have 3, 4 generations together, and each generation has a different perspective on not only expectations, but their approach to work and how they do things. It could be a strength in the team because while the boomers and the Gen X's bring that wisdom to the team and the focus and the deep thought, maybe the Gen Zs bring the energy and bring accomplishment because they do things with technology that maybe we are still learning and they know about it already. So that kind of variety of generations in a team can be a strength if it is well managed and all employees are engaged as a team, right?
And also flexibility, I think. Gen Z is really looking for flexibility, right? One day they want to come at 9 o'clock, the day after want to come 11, the day after they don't want to come. So that's the toughest, at least it's been for me to manage this kind of flexibility, because of course your customer is there every day, right? They're using the machine every day. So you of course can organize shifts kind of during the day. But I don't know, at least in Germany, you have to do your 40 hours per week. So it depends also on the instrument they're working on. I have some people who, they are really keen to stay till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the evening. And that is perfect because someone else just want to stay till 5 o'clock. So that's the perfect match. But it depends on the industry, it depends on the product, and it depends on the customer, of course.
Yeah, and this is where, like Charlie was saying at the beginning, through the dialogue with a new hire, or even when you come into a team as a new manager, if you sit down with your teammates and understand each and every one of them, you can gather what is their expectation of the time usage and productivity in a day. And if someone, as you said, Maurizio, prefers to finish at 8 and start later, and someone else is the opposite of that, this could be a strength in the team because then you're covering the customer on a longer span of time. So it is important to understand each and every team member. And this is where you can play on the strength of different people so that they mesh well within the team. And the result is positive outcome from the whole team as a team, basically.
You muted, Bruce.
You're on mute, Bruce. Yeah.
Sorry, thanks. I think that's where the leader has an enormous role, because putting all that, into one bag and shake it up, I mean, it could be chaos, right? And I think that starting with, what's our mission and purpose as an organization, to just constantly keep that front and center. Because we're here to take care of customers, we're here to have a business, and in doing so, we take care of our employees, right? But it all has a sequence, and if you look at key things that leaders do, they always talk about strategy and tactics, and the revenue numbers we have to hit and our goals and all that kind of stuff. Whereas on the servant side, it's trying to support the employee. So I think the mission for us is to have that balance, because to put the customer as the objective, right? We're in business to take care of the customer, and therefore it requires these unusual hours or these unexpected delays, and everyone to work as a team. And then when the such and such within the team has a need to be flexible, or someone likes to work at night, or someone likes to work in the morning, whatever it may be, at least you have the framework, the context of which you can be flexible, and sometimes I think too, it's okay to say no, right? Because, we have this mission at hand, but as long as they know that you have their back and you're wanting to say yes, but in some cases we have no option and they need to pull their weight for that circumstance, that also permeates across the entire team. because, the minute someone, can't work after 5 all the time and someone else can work till 8, it just creates these issues perhaps within the team. And so I think the leader is challenged, right, to address the different makeup of the team in the context of supporting the customer. But it can go so well too, because when one person goes out of their way, when say they have children to pick up and they can't work after 5, and someone actually incurs that hardship, everyone knows, and therefore is going to try to work better to ensure that person can do what they got to do, because they're probably doing something the other person can't do. And we're not even talking about the technological parts of things. I haven't been in one organization yet. I think it was Charlie I was talking about, the differences between generations and the technology, skills they may have. But I haven't been part of one organization yet that hasn't had a bunch of really older installed base of equipment that you need the more senior people to address, as well as the brand new stuff. And everyone's got their specialty, not to say it's all age related, but some people like the mechanical parts and some people like the coding, but there's something for everyone. I always found that help each other.
If I can just pick up on one of your points you made there, Bruce, I think with field teams, a lot of the time they don't know each other. And I was part of a really good team where kind of a situation as you were describing. There was a guy who didn't have kids, and so was happy to cover when the school holidays. But I think part of the reason why he was so engaged and so up for that, and didn't matter to him, was partly to do with getting all these people in the same room at a regular occurrence, so they knew each other. Because too often we're in the field, we're on our own, and we may have our few buddies that we talk to, but it's it's not necessarily the case that, and it's not always possible for your whole field team to be in the same place at the same time. And that, I think, is a really important piece of field service management, is to try and get those teams together. It might be expensive if you've got a large global team, but at least have some kind of groups that can physically get in the same room and get to know each other and understand some of the issues they go through. I think another thing that I think we should explore a little bit is those causes of disengagement. Oftentimes it might be something happening in someone's personal life. Sometimes it might be some kind of change that's happening in the organization, whether that's a change of CRM or whether that's an acquisition, a merger of some sort. But those are the instances where you're more likely to see some kind of disengagement, and understanding or being able to see that ahead of time and being able to head that off, I think, is a really important thing as leaders that we need to take on board as well.
It's interesting what you said about the getting the teams together. I think in my experience, that's been critical over the years. And then, we used to have annual service meetings, and the team's too big to get everybody in one room, but you can do it in regional groups. But then COVID came along, and we went into lockdown, and service kept working. Service kept going to hospitals every day, but they're all like individuals, right? They're always working by themselves, occasionally in pairs, but mostly by themselves. And then because of lockdown and everybody going hybrid and remotes, and all the cost containment that the lockdown brought with supply chain issues and things, we didn't have meetings for a number of years. And we've had employees now who've been here for 4 years who've never met any of their teammates except on video. And it's critical, and you see that feedback in the surveys, and we've got data that shows if we have an annual meeting once a year where you get all these people together, to just you do a workshop and you do some meeting stuff and you do some presentations. That's all important to share how the business is running, but the social aspect of it as well is probably even more critical as an individual service engineer, to go and meet your teammates and spend time with them. And we know that people stay with us. People who may have been thinking about leaving stay, because we have these group meetings or workshops once a year, once every 2 years. And it's critical. And we had a lower attrition rate when we were having these regular meetings. So it actually saves the company money in the long term, because to replace an engineer, a highly skilled engineer with lots of years of experience, is really, really expensive. So it's worth that little investment if you can manage it to keep the team together.
Right, and
I
it's
think that
expensive and lengthy also. And talking about team and team engagement, there's the human side also. We are all humans. We are not machines operating and fixing equipment. And it's important that each teammate feels belonging, feels that the team and the company represents them well, so that they can represent the company well in front of the customers. So this is where the team is really bound together well, and they help one another anytime help is needed. It makes a strong team and an everlasting team, and people will think less of leaving. And sometimes what happens is that maybe top leadership changes, and that brings cultural change into the organization, and that can affect teams. It can be challenging not only to the field engineers, but to their managers and to their directors too, because there's a change of direction. So if we were to talk about change management at that level, what have you seen? What have you experienced in your lifetime?
I guess I can go first. Having recently gone through an acquisition 4 years ago, there's an awful lot of change that has to be managed. But I think the most critical thing for us is to try and provide that continuity. It's although your executive leadership changes, the organization is pretty much the same as it was. So I think especially as a senior leader, you need to be that link between the new organization and the old organization, and try and manage how that integration happens. Okay, and it's challenging. It's emotional, for a lot of people, especially if you've been with one organization for a long time. And I think the natural tendency is to think, well, it's going to be terrible, right? There's nothing good going to come out of this. But well, at least in my experience, it's been pretty good. It opens up a lot more opportunities for people, wider organization, more career prospects. And it can offer some long-term stability, I think. So but it's a tricky path to manage as a leader, trying to maintain that engagement of your employees whilst navigating the change into new processes, and just little things like new clothes. Having to take off your old T-shirt with your old company name and putting the new one on is super emotional for some people.
Definitely.
And trying to get through that, and still, we still have the same mission, we still have the same purpose, what we do every day. But yeah, it's super tricky to manage.
Yeah, I think changes all the time, right? And there's the old joke that people love change except when they have to change themselves, right? and gosh, between our technology, our work order systems, whatever it may be, ERP, CRMs, mergers, the big ones like you're talking about, Kevin, even acquiring other companies, it puts a lot of burden on the manager, to be the effective leader. I always joke, but I use it seriously. But I just think it's a frank way to looking at it, is when I talk to folks about change. And most of change is construed as change to you, right? So you've been acquired, you're going to wear a different uniform. Okay, that's the change to you. There's change for you, right? Like giving you a new learning management system that allows you to do things, on your own time and stuff like that. And then finally, there's change by you, so that's where I ultimately try to get the discussion to, is because that's the growth of the individual. That goes back to everything we started talking about, is what change are you bringing to the table yourself, right? Your skills, your behaviors, your teamwork, your customer focus, whatever it is. So it usually starts when, it's changes to me, right? And then I move that up a ladder and say, well, hey, a lot of this is for you, but really where you want to drive it is by you. So try to use that little technique.
If we were to talk a little bit about alignment, employee alignment, how have you seen that work, and how have you seen it not work, where maybe some employees just don't want to align. They prefer to continue doing things the way they feel comfortable doing. And how can you help them align or make sure that the whole team is aligned?
I'm going to jump in on that then, Guy. So I've been in a position of being acquired on a couple of occasions, and I've been the acquiring organization on maybe half a dozen occasions. And employee alignment is an interesting one. I think perhaps not so much in the acquisitions, but more in the change management when you come to a new CRM system. So when I worked in Europe, we had a new CRM system going from a kind of an in-house to an off-the-shelf and then customization. For us to make sure that everyone was brought along on that, one of the key things we did was identify who's going to be the influences in the team. So identify there will be people who will embrace it, there will be people who will complain about it. You want to make sure that you've got the people who are promoting it are the people who are going to influence the rest of the team. I'd say one of the things that we did in that situation is get those influencers who are going to be positive involved really early on in the project, so they can see it through and they can so the organization feels as though it has a voice of change and its views are represented to make sure that change is for the best part of the team. So I think there's lots that you can do to try and manage that, and it's not just on one person, but you want a group of people, and you also want to identify, okay, who's going to be negative about this? How are we going to bring them along with us? What special things do we need to do? Do we need to get them in early? Do we need to sideline them? Do we need to isolate them? There are lots of strategies you can take to make sure those people who are going to be more of a challenge to bring on board or to align, but you need to think about it. You need to come up with a strategy, and understanding your employees is key in that, to know who's going to be engaged, who's going to be aligned, and who you're going to have some work to do with.
Right. I'll go back to something that Bruce said at the beginning that will tie into this. Keep your employees happy and they will take care of the customers. The challenge is that you want to keep them happy, you want to keep them aligned, but the challenge is that you cannot satisfy everybody's expectations or requests. We have the guidelines of the company, we have the policies of the company, we have the priorities of the company, and we need to all be aligned within that as we service our customers. So it could be something minimal that will cause the employee to disengage because their expectation is something that you cannot satisfy. You cannot please everyone. And this brings a challenge. And sometimes you're able to find a solution and work it out with the employee, but some other times you are unable to do that no matter what you try. And this is where a decision needs to be made, right?
Yeah.
And we try to be transparent with the employees. We try to explain everything and be clear around what the expectations are, and maybe a new software or whatever brought some change and we need to align with the new idea maybe, or new culture or new tool. And it's a challenge for the manager. Maurizio, you wanted to jump in?
No, it's correct. I mean, I think the biggest challenge is always the goal would be to be transparent, and that would ease everything, but you're not allowed to, right? Because as you said, you got your policy, you are man in between. Maybe a trick that I use, it's always to put this in front of the people, especially, I don't know, new software, new CRM software, to tell, look, if you are the first one to step into this, you're going to be also the specialist for this, right? So it's like an added value to your CV, to your curriculum, to your role. So that's why I try at least to sell it, because I think I think it's something that you bring with you, right? You put it in your pocket. So And I guess for the ones who do not accept it, as you said, I mean, you have to balance the thing, and if they have to, they have to. And maybe it's worthy, to bring these people together, as Charlie said, to find the ones who are pro from the very beginning, get them involved straight away in the project, and be the ones who influence the whole team. Also to put value on the fact that maybe the new CRM is better than the old one, right? And can ease processes, make it quicker, make it cleaner, and this is also, I guess, a way on navigating this change management topic.
Mhm.
It can be a bit of a tightrope, though, right, Maurizio? Just to play devil's advocate. I mean, if you oversell it and say, "Oh, this is going to solve all of our problems," and it doesn't, then you've got yourself a little bit of a challenge. Having oversold. So, I say this because again, CRM systems. When you demo them, they look great, and then when you try and implement them, you realize all sorts of headaches. So I think it's a challenge that you don't want to be. Setting yourself up for a disaster if you oversell.
True. I guess especially when you set something in order to pull data, right? Because that's the thing that, I mean, FSC, they don't care about the data. I mean, unless, that mirrors what they're earning at the end of the year as a bonus. But that's, I guess, the tricky part, right?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that, and like to those points you've just made there, it's I think it clicked for me when I was a junior manager. I was trying to make everybody happy. So when you had a project like this or to bring something on, you want to try and make everybody happy. And once you realize you can't, right? Not everyone's going to be okay with decisions you're making or the new project or program or process, whatever it is. Once you realize that, you can move on, then I think it actually improves you as a leader. And you're right, you have to bring, the promoters along with you and use them to your advantage to help, spread the good word amongst the rest of the team. But as long as you realize there's always going to be people who are they're going to object to whatever change is coming. And once you learn to live with that, it's okay. As long as you're transparent and explain the reason you're doing everything, it's I think it improves you as a leader once you make that realization.
Right.
Yeah,
And sometimes even people who are keen on not aligning with whatever new thing is happening in the department, and as a leader, you try to stay the path and continue with what is right to do. Sometimes they come around after a month or two because they see that, what you were saying and what you're trying to implement is truly better, but they were simply being maybe negative about it. It's sometimes a question of time, and time can resolve issues sometimes. You wanted to say
Reminds me
something,
of my
Bruce?
wife not wanted a mobile phone with internet.
Uh-huh.
And when she found it, she was like, "Ooh,
yeah.
I'll
I
live
was just
without it."
I was just going to say I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's the importance of framework. And what I heard from Kevin is, hey, this is our team effort to go to this process, and it's going to mean, some of us have to do things slightly different and stuff like that. I'm used to hearing things like when you're comfortable with something, well, that may be, it may be you're comfortable with writing out this report, taking it home with you, and 2 days later finishing it and sending it to the office. Well, that doesn't suffice, right, for the customer, much less our business, much less the workflow in today's real time environment, right, for a million reasons. And I still hear some of that from time to time today, unfortunately. But I think having that framework and having the the discipline behind it, meaning the confidence that no, this is our collective customer journey map, right? Again, name the customer in this process. This is good for all of us. And if you choose not to do this real time, look at the impact for your teammates and stuff like that. And maybe over time they realize that, but at least having that framework, I know, I feel good about, hey, we've done everything, and if this is going to be a bad player, then we are only going to achieve the goals through a team, and that's just the cost of it, unfortunately.
Right. And it happened to me a couple of times where, large teams, we're talking 30, 40 people, and you have that one person that prefers to continue to do things his way, while the other 20, 30, 40 people are well aligned, and it upsets them. And this is where, if the manager doesn't take the necessary action, you will lose good players because they feel
Right.
that you don't care about them. You just let that person do what they do and upset the whole team. While if you, try once, twice, and three times and help that one person align and understand why the alignment is important, you don't want that to break the team. So this is where the unfortunate decision happens, to preserve the team and preserve the alignment and the path that the team is walking together for the benefit of the customers and the company also.
Absolutely.
Something that I noted earlier, and I was listening to a podcast before, and how maybe a little change with a talent within the team can make a difference, is the story of Michael Jordan. You probably know the name, the famous basketball player in the Chicago Bulls, and Phil Jackson. He was the coach of the team. And apparently the story was that the first couple of years, Michael Jordan was scoring, but even though his score was not high, it was not getting wins. And this is where the coach intervened and noticed that that talented person is relying on himself to score all the time. He's not trusting his team members and playing as a team member to allow the whole team to step up and win games. And I think this is something that we even see in our own teams and field engineering, where you have talented people, but they prefer to shine on their own and not be a team player and help the whole team, step up to a different level. And the role of the manager is, like a coach, we keep saying that, is to open the eyes to that person and show them that this is your blind spot. Watch for it. You need maybe to give your teammates more trust and allow them to be engaged with you and win all together. I don't know if you have seen this in your experience, and what was the outcome?
I think in that scenario, feedback is critical, right? Feedback and some kind of framework. So if you're asking them to lead something or to take charge of a program or a project, is to be very clear about the expectations. So you kind of put the framework around it so they can't be successful just by themselves. They have to use other people. And one of the tasks you can put on them is to help develop some of their teammates. So make that one of the objectives of the program, not just the program success by itself, but actually bringing teammates along with them. And then individuals like that who like to work by themselves or take the glory or whatever it is, that's where I think that the feedback is critical. And as leaders anyway, I always say that feedback is a gift. And I think whenever you have the opportunity to give it or to receive it, you should definitely take that, as long as it's constructive and it's helpful. Then that's, for me, that's definitely the way forward.
Yeah, I think it comes up in our industry a lot when someone knows a particular technique or a particular product of some sort, and they don't train others, right? They sometimes hold on to that knowledge and skill that they have, and instead of trying to groom others. And sometimes, to their defense, it's easier, right, just to do it themselves, and they get the glory behind it, perhaps. But as we all know, it's harder perhaps to train and get other people to know what they know. But I think that's where it raises its head more so in the field service industry.
And sometimes it's not their fault, maybe because they are so busy that they don't have the time to share that knowledge. And this is also the role of the manager, to notice that and help that person to make time and allow his teammates to learn that knowledge and relieve that person maybe from some responsibilities and ease out his use of time potentially.
Good intergenerational, tool, really.
Right. Nice discussions. I think we're close to the top of the hour, so maybe it makes sense to end the talk here today, potentially continuing another time. Thank you very much, Kevin, Bruce, Maurizio, Charlie, for sharing your knowledge and giving us your time today to have this interesting roundtable discussion. We look forward to continuing with this, and we hope that our viewers find these discussions interesting, beneficial, and we welcome the comments and the likes that will tell us that we are on the right path with these roundtables, and we're here to contribute to the community. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Keith.
you.
Bye all. Bye.
Bye-bye.